Okay, so now we're at our cutting table. From the Fabulous Quilting Supplies, we have a self-healing cutting mat. We have a strip cutting guide that actually has little strips inside of plexiglass at every ½ inch. And then we also have a rotary cutting wheel. These are fabulous. The red button here is a lock. So you can lock it and unlock it simply by doing that. By squeezing here, it extends the blade out from the guard so that you can actually make your cut. So when you make your cut, you need to hold that out so that you can push forward and make your cut. Okay, there we go. Now, on our cutting table, we just want to set our strip guide to the side here for a minute. We've got our cutting mat, and we've got our accordion folded fabric that we had before. We're just going to take this accordion folded fabric. Remember, it's lined up selvage edge to selvage edge, and then once again, and we're going to lay this out on our table. Making a little adjustment to my fold here as we needed. Now, our cuts are all going to be perpendicular to each other. And so, just to kind of give myself a rough guide to go off of, we're using the lines on the cutting mat here. And this is the folded edge. It has nothing but folds here. The selvage is at the other end. I'm just lining that up along this bottom cutting edge. And then we're going to take our cutting guide and bring it in here. I'm going to be cutting along the even numbers to cut 2-inch squares. So we're going to start with 0, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. So the black line on this guide here, this first one that's at the 0 mark running horizontally, we're going to take that and we're going to line up with the bottom edge of this cloth. So that same folded bottom edge that we were looking at before. Now, you'll notice that on this edge over here, it was unevenly folded, and we were going to trim that off. I have the guide over far enough that my 0 is actually going to cut through all 4 layers of fabric. And this is important. If I had my first cut out over here, I would not have a nice clean edge through all 4 layers of fabric. So it's really important that on this line, you get through all 4 layers of fabric. So if you need to move that over a little bit more, then do that. As you make your cuts, I'm going to cut upside down so you guys can see the numbers a little bit better. You're holding the fabric in place. You're making sure you're not cutting any of your thumbs or fingers as you're doing this. So my first cut is going to be along the 0 to clear and clean this first edge. So, squeezing, put the blade into the 0 off of the cloth, but on the cutting mat. Bracing the cloth just so it doesn't go anywhere. You need to press firmly, but not too hard, and you just roll right all the way through the 0 to the far end of the cloth so you're on only the cutting mat again. So nice clean cut all the way through. And we're working with an older mat and an older blade, so I'm just going to go through 2 or 3 times just to make sure it gets a nice clean cut. So that's 0. We're going to make all our cuts, and then you'll see where we're at. 0, I'm coming to the 2-inch mark. So 2, 4. By the way, my wife, the fabric expert, will tell you never lock the tool out like that while you're using it. It's too dangerous, so don't do that. So 6, 8, 10, and for our purposes today, we're just going to stop at the 10-inch mark. Now, at this point, tool is safely back in its place. Alright, my wife would be proud of me. Alright, we're bracing on this side of the 10 mark. Here's our 10 line right here in front of my fingers. I'm just holding this material firmly but gently, and everything on this side of the 10 mark is free. And then we're going to grab our cloth at the far end over here, and we're going to just gently scooch it out, and you'll see those two separating. So that this stays out of the way. It's accordion folded again, and it goes out of the way for now. Coming back here, we lift off our cutting guide, and we clean away our trimmed edge here. This was our trim edge to get it started. It's going in the garbage can off to the side. And now we have a block that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips cut into it. And we're going to work with that. So, I'm coming in here. Remember, I'm cutting on the even numbers. So, if I start at 2 on this end, I can come up to 12. Sometimes there's enough on your folded edge. So this is our bottom folded edge. Sometimes there's enough that if I start that on the 1, and so I'm off of it, I'm gently holding this edge down, and I'm butting it up against the folded edge. This is the side that has all the folds, 4 layers all folded. The selvage edge is the other end over here. If I butt that up, if I cut on the 2, these will unfold, and I will have 2 square cuts of cloth on each one. So sometimes you can get a little bit more. If you're running a little bit low on cloth, you can do that. Doesn't always work. The important thing, though, if you're trying this, is the other edge. So the selvage edge up here, you want to make sure that, since I'm cutting on the even numbers, the 12 here would be my last cut. This line needs to go through all 4 layers of cloth. And it looks like we're just shy of that. So we're just going to move this over a little bit, and it doesn't really matter where I'm at this point, other than that the 2 and the 12 are both on my yellow square of cloth. And then, see this black line here on my cutting guide? I'm going to take that black line, and I'm going to line it up with the bottom edge, my last cut from the previous time. I'm going to line that up on there. This is going to give me a nice square cut piece of cloth when I'm done here. Alright, so we're ready to cut. Well, remember, we're cutting 2-inch squares, so we're going to be on the evens. So I'm starting on the 12 here. It might be a little hard for you to see, but this is the 12 here. And our first cut is basically trimming and squaring that edge. Now I have 5 strips of cloth. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. 12, counting down this time. 10. Remember, as you're bracing the cloth here with your other hand, keep your thumb out of the way. Yeah, you can tell that I've come close a few times. So, 8. Now, if you're not careful, you actually accidentally cut down the wrong line. It has happened before, in which case, you'll just need more cloth. 6. Sometimes you'll forget one, in which case, you can go back through and add that cut in. It's always easier to add a cut to cloth than it is to take a cut away from cloth, right? And our last one here is on the edge to clear up this far edge. So there's 2. Alright, tool is locked. We're setting that off to the side. And we're going to gently lift the cutting guide straight up so we don't disturb our pile of cloth there. And we're going to remove all our trimmed edges, all these loose pieces. And if you don't get all the way through one of these, just take your cutting tool and, being careful about your fingers there, give it a little trim to clear it off. Alright, so as you remove these trim pieces, in this case they're all going in the garbage, we now have a grid here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Background noise. So 5 squares by 5 squares. You'll notice each one of these is 4 layers thick. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 5, that's 20. So there's 20 little squares there. 20 more. 20 more. 20 more. And 20 more. So we have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 little squares of, in this case, yellow cloth. If you're doing this for the project this video was originally made for, you're going to need a few more of these. We need what? 1 more of these, I believe. But then you also have a bunch of other colors to make. But there's your 100 squares. That one's ready and set to go.